Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you for the study of tonight. So may our Master Jesus and the good spirits to be with us today so that we can receive the enlightening teachings that comes from our Master Jesus, right? So today we are going to study the Spiritist book, chapter number 3. The title is Creation. And the chapter number 3, it has some interesting questions that comes to our mind as living beings. It is about creation, our existence, the existence of our planet and the universe. So questions that come such as, how was the universe created? How was Earth created? How did life appear on Earth? Why human races are so diverse on our planet? And if there are other worlds in the universe that are also inhabited. So Allan Kardec was able to put together a few questions to the spirits, trying to answer these questions. So let's take a look at some of the main ideas of this chapter. So the first thing is the first item that he discusses in this chapter is about the formation of the worlds. So he starts by defining what is meant by universe. So he says that the universe is comprised of the infinite number of worlds we can see. So all the planets, stars that we see in our sky, but not only that, it also includes those we cannot see. So there are things in the universe that our eye or even the best equipment that we have on Earth is not able to see. It includes all animate and inanimate beings. So everything that has life in our world and other worlds, and also things that don't have life, like objects, buildings. It also includes heavenly bodies moving through the space. So if we think about all those comets or other shooting stars, right? So these are things that are moving through space. And also all the fluids that fill the space. So if we think even us here on Earth, we have fluids, right? We have substances in the air that we cannot see, like oxygen, air. And it's already stated here that all around the universe, there is some sort of fluid that is filling all the space. So there is no empty space. So this is what the universe is comprised of. So now, another question that we have is that was the universe created or has existed from all the eternity like God? So the question is about when the universe was created. And what the spirits tell us is that obviously, the universe did not create itself. So it was not just randomly being created. So it was created by someone or something. And if it has existed from all eternity, like God, then it could not be God's work. So the spirits are very clear in the entire chapter that the universe was creation of God. It's not a matter of question whether or not the universe was created by God. And because it was created by God, it cannot have existed before God. So this question brings two main ideas, right, in the answer. First one, the universe was created, but it was created in accordance to universal laws. So When God created the universe, he has in the God's mind, which is perfect, is infinitely perfect, in a perfection that we cannot reach as or realize as human beings, created these laws that are similarly perfect. And all the changes, everything that's created, including the universe, follow these laws because the laws come from God, and as God is perfect, the laws are also perfect. So the universe was creating, obeying these universal laws, and the universe is not God. That's the second idea. And Allan Kardec is try to be very clear, explaining that it is important for us to understand that creation is different from the creator. And he gives an example that's more close to us. So think about things that humankind creates. So when we see a beautiful building or a bridge that connects land from one side to the other, when we see all the beautiful art that human beings create. So these are creations of humankind, which is different from the creator, which are us. So that's the same analogy that he tried to tell us to think about God. When we think about the creation of the universe and the universe itself, we have to understand that that was created by God and is not God. And by doing that, it makes us it makes easy for us to understand how precious, how perfect, how how infinitely perfect God is. So universe is not God. So the creation is different from the creator. The next point that they are trying to the chapter focus on is about the formation of the words. So now we are talking about the creation of God, which are the worlds, right? So we know from science, when we think about our galaxy, how the solar system was created, science already had some progress that tell us a little bit about some theories, how they think that science thinks that the universe was created. So it starts by one of the theories that mostly accepted is the Big Bang theory, which tells that there was this explosion of a concentrated mass. So our solar system was before a concentrated mass that it was in space. It's not even our solar system alone, but the universe, right? So there was this big, giant, concentrated mass that had an explosion, and this originated the universe. And from there, all the universe and different systems originated. And science also has suggested that Earth, the age of Earth's age is approximately 4.5 billion years old, plus or minus 50 million years, right? You cannot get exactly the numbers, but you get a range there that is about 4.54 billion years. And what else we know about the formation of the world? The Bible also has its contribution, right? In the first book of the Bible, we see that God created everything in 6 days, right? So it is the first few verses in the Genesis that talks about that every day something was created. In the seventh day, God had completed its work and he rested, right? That's what the Bible tells to us, which many people, um, uh, many people today already accept that this is probably a metaphor, right? An allegory to trying to explain how things were created in stages. So perhaps each day represents many years, not exactly one day, but many years or a stage in the development of of Earth that where changes were making, right? So it's a representation. But now let's see what Spiritism has to tell us. So what the Spiritists tell us about the formation of worlds and Earth, right? Per se. So creation did indeed occur according to God's will. And that's the idea, the notion that we come from Bible, right? Because God said, come light, and the light was made, right? That's the main statements. And spirits actually confirm that creation did indeed occur according to God's will, but through the laws of natural forces over millions of years. So it is this notion that God had the will of the universe to be created, but this creation obeyed natural laws, so that it took a million of years that this creation actually came into place and is completed. It was not a matter of few days. Okay, so this is in the Spiritist book. And a little bit later, Emmanuel, in the book On the Way of Light, he also gives us some additional information, right? Because remember, this was Allan Kardec already had anticipated that new information would be coming. So we have that from Emmanuel now in 1938, when he explains that at the point where Earth and our solar system was going to be formed, there was a community of pure spirits chosen by God to govern the life of all planetary collectivities. So all planets, all life in all planetary communities are governed by this group of pure spirits that are in charge of the management and growth and development of these planets. So we learn a little bit more, right? So there was this organization is still following laws, natural laws that are fixed, and this group of pure spirits are helping with the creation. So spirits also explain a little bit more about the formation of living beings. So we spoke about the worlds. Now we are going to talk about the living beings living in all those different planets, different worlds. So what they have to tell us is that one question that Allan Kardec addressed to the spirits was, when did the living beings first appear on Earth? So the spirits explain, and in the beginning, all was chaos. The elements were all jumbled together. And then when we think about the Earth, and when Earth developed with this explosion, Earth was super hot, right? The crust of Earth was in pure fire, right? They estimated that would be around 400 Fahrenheit, the temperature, and it took many years, millions of years until that mass could actually cool down. So it was a chaos. But little by little, each thing settled into its proper place. So as the time passed, things were calming down. So the chaos was dissipating. Then living beings appropriate for that state of the globe appeared. So after everything quieted down on Earth, that was the moment where there was the Earth was in a state that life could come. So still, this is a little bit blurry, right? Doesn't give you too much information. And think about this is 1857, right? And much of the knowledge we still don't know, right? Science has progressed a lot, but still there are many things that are unknowns. And there's a reason for that, right? Spirits, so continuing then. So then Allan Kardec asked to the spirits, can we know the age in which humans and other life forms first appear on Earth? So can we know that? So the spirits say, no, all of your calculations are purely speculative. So this was the answer of the spirits in 1857, right, when the Spiritist book was written. And many changes had happened. So that answer was probably appropriate at that time, where we didn't have technology developed enough in order for us to answer questions. Today, there are methods where archaeologists, for example, they study rocks and fossils that they find on the crust of Earth, and they are able to calculate the age of the fossil or rock. So we had some advance in that matter. So today, with the progress of science, we are able to estimate a timeline of life on Earth. So that's what this picture tried to show, right? So Earth was it is estimated that Earth was created 4.6 billion of years ago. And as it becomes older and older, we can see that the first, as it progressed, life start to appear in different forms. So we can see here that the oldest fossil cells were found around 3 billion years back. And then when we move forward, we can see here the first, we have some sort of fish, some sort of shell animal, and dinosaurs, and things were progressing through the millennia, the billions of years. And we see human beings here, right at the end, right, which was much more recent. So estimated of life, science tell us that estimated life might have showed on Earth around 3.7 to 4.2 billion of years ago, right? A long time ago. It's even hard for us to imagine this time, right? And a direct evidence, which means fossils, right, are things that they found and they analyzed that confirm that they could find evidence, direct evidence dating 3.4 billion of years ago. So that's about the age of our life on our planet, right? And this time, 3.4 billions of years ago, was after the oceans were formed, because the first types of life on Earth appeared in water. Okay, so science has progressed a little bit. So perhaps that question, when we go to read the Spiritist book, we have to use our reasoning to compare the answers of the spirits to what we know now, and recognize that knowledge improves as we progress as a society with technology, and also the spirits are always giving us the answers that are appropriate to our stage of knowledge. Okay, so next question is, so then, okay, so the question is then, okay, we know that there are living beings on Earth, but the question is, where these living beings come from in order to appear on Earth? Because at the beginning, it was all chaos, right? The Earth was a big mass of incandescent mass, right? And it was not suitable to life, and suddenly life appeared. So what the spirits tell us is that Earth actually already had contained their prototypes, which had been waiting for a favored moment in order to develop. So these prototypes are the organic elements that are going to generate life. So the spirits are saying that this was already on Earth, but because Earth was in a condition that life was not possible, right? The conditions were very bad for life to develop. These elements, these prototypes, they stayed on standby. They were waiting for a moment when they could take advantage of the environment to develop. So moving on, spirits also tell that these organic elements, they began to combine when the force that had kept them apart ceased. So there was a point in the development of Earth that we had these elements, but the environment was not favorable. It was not, these organic elements could not combine. And by organic elements, you could think about very molecules or atoms that were not able to combine to form life. But then when all these harms, all this pressure of the environment was released, then these prototypes were able to combine and form all living beings. So the spirits give tell us that these prototypes then remained latent in inert, so they stay resting in quiet like a chrysalis or a seed. So think about a seed that we collect in our garden this year, and then we want to save to maybe put on the ground next year. So that seed is going to be kept out of the ground, right? You can put dirt around it because otherwise you try to germinate, but the conditions are not helping them to grow, right? So then once we have the proper time or in the right place, then we can put the seed on the ground, and then we will be able to see this seed germinate. So that's the same idea. So these prototypes were like seeds of life that were waiting for the right moment until each species could appear. So the idea here, the notion here that the spirits give us, that all prototypes from all species, they were already set in place, or all the elements necessary for the different species were already there, right? And then we're just waiting to find the right moment. And once this species actually emerged, they came together and they were able to reproduce by themselves. So here is a graph, right, that shows the evolution of humans from a single cell to today, right? So if we think about life on Earth, life started with very simple, very small, the most simple type of life, which is a simple single cell life, showed here on the top left of this picture. And as we move, we start to see the emergence of new forms of life, every time more complex, until we move into the age of mammals, which are the most closely related in terms of evolution, in terms of human beings. And we can see here at the end, the Homo family, which is the human species, right? We are Homo sapiens, which are right here at the end. And all these Homo beings here before Homo sapiens, they are already part of our family. Okay, so the evolution took millions and millions of years until we can find actually human beings. So, okay, so we see that there is there is this evolution. Oh, yes.
So, just before you continue, if I may make a comment, as a scientist, we can see how this book, right? It was written in 18 something, but how it really aligns with science, right? It does not go against it at all, right? That's what
Yes.
all these things we gave names afterwards about Big Bang, right? And these molecules together, but that's really what we study, right? That these elements were there, and once it cools down, I thought it was really interesting when it says that the conditions. So I was thinking, when you have heat, then the molecules are really moving. It's hard for them to get together, right? But once you cool down, then things start to be able to get together and formation. And I think this is a big point, because as Christians, right? We want to believe what is in the Bible, but we also can see how it is. I never thought that there was any really discrepancy. I think God created the Big Bang. The science goes up to the Big Bang, right? It doesn't know what happened before. So to me, God created the Big Bang, and it's okay that it happens later after that, right? And that's what in the question 45 it says that, is God gonna be less powerful if we think, that
Yeah.
creation was from just these molecules getting together and then becoming so much more complex organisms, right? And the spirit says far from it, and I agree. I think it makes God even more wonderful, right? That it's so powerful in the power of creation that can make that right possible. That small molecules
Yes.
being together and goes
Yeah.
from something very simple to something very complex. It's just a
Yes.
rearrangement of elements. So
Yes.
I just couldn't resist to say something, because uh it's really spiritism is really aligned with science, and it is Christian, so it's all together, right? It's not either
Yes.
or.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, thanks, Anna. Yeah, for sure. And in all of this chapter, Allan Kardec so beautifully connects science, which the knowledge was very limited at the time, and with religion and Christianity, right? Because he even says about that the fact that God follows laws doesn't make him less, right? That's what I was commenting on. And also, most of the confusion and conflict between science and religion comes to the fact that we sometimes take things too literally, to take things, the narrations from the Bible literally, instead of trying to understand the actual meaning. So we are going to talk more about that a little bit further. Okay, so the question is, so just going back then. So okay, so we had these elements, and then the environment got good for them to develop, and then living beings come, but it still doesn't answer the question, right? Where were these organic elements, these prototypes, before earth formation? And then that's what the interesting thing that the spirits tell us. So these organic elements, they were in a fluidic state, right? So they were in a different form, and that was more subtle, more fluidic in space amongst spirits or on other planets, waiting for creation of Earth in order to commence a new existence on the globe. So the spirits are telling us that the elements that created life on our planet, they were elsewhere. So if they were, how did they get here if they were elsewhere, right? So one further Spiritist literature, at the time of the Spiritist book, that was the furthest they went, right? But later on in other Spiritist literature, um, we learn from the spirits that through the law of attraction is things that have similar energy, similar wishes, similar desires, they get together, they connect, right? It's just like thought that we learn that when we make a prayer and we, in our prayers, we direct our thoughts, wishing well health to somebody else, that person, whatever they are, incarnated or discarnated, they are able to receive that energy, that thought. So the law of attraction is very similar to that idea, right? So the law of attraction tells that these elements that were in another planet, perhaps, they come on Earth because they connect to Earth, because Earth had the perfect conditions for those elements to develop. The spirits also later on, by Emmanuel, they tell us about this community of pure spirits, which we already spoke a little bit earlier about the formation of Earth. So we have this community of pure spirits governing the solar system, which Jesus is one of them. They met in the vicinity of Earth when Earth detached from the solar system, right, from the solar nebula. So there was this big mass. So when the mass that was going to be Earth separated from the bigger mass that was going to form our solar system, this community of pure spirits, which were the managers of all these projects, they were here they were here overseeing the process. And at that moment, they installed on Earth the prototypes of life. So those same elements, they are going to originate life. So they said that they installed the prototypes of life in the flaming matter of the planet that could, they set that in space and in place. So in that moment, all those organic elements that are going to generate life were deposited on Earth, and they were waiting. Then they waited billions and millions of years until the moment where they can emerge, right? So that's why we see in the evolution that different types of living beings, right, including plants, including animals, and even human beings, they appear in different points in life, in the life of our planet, because they have to wait for the proper moments. That's also brought me in mind about the idea of viruses, right? As we live in a pandemic moment, that viruses that sometimes appear out of nothing, right? They were not, or they were very isolated in a certain animal, and then they emerge and they spread throughout other species, or viruses that we were not knowledgeable about that appeared on Earth. And that was because they just find, if we think about this idea that the perfect conditions, they are waiting for the perfect conditions in order to emerge, right? Okay, so that's what Anna already mentioned, right? Is God's glory diminished by the fact that living beings were formed out of chaos by forces of nature? So this, by knowing these natural laws, these natural forces, would that make God's glory diminished? And then what and already said, right? Far from it. Instead, this fact corresponds better to the idea that God yields divine power over all the infinite worlds by using eternal law. So the glory of God is not because he can make miracles happen, but the glory of God is because he's so perfect. God's so perfect that God is able to create eternal laws that are perfect. So that's where the glory, or the supreme intelligence comes from. It generates these eternal laws. And still, granted this theory, this does not solve the problem of how life elements themselves originated. And the spirits told to Allan Kardec that God guards divine secrets, and he had put limits on their inquiries. So basically, the spirits are telling, this is all you can know right now. So we have to wait for the future when you'll be able to understand, right? Many questions in the Spiritist book, the Spirits are going to say, you can't understand this, right? So for now, just understand X, Y, Z. So we have this in many places. So did the human species, the next question is, did the human species begin on one single man? So that's a question that Allan Kardec addressed, asking about the story of Adam and Eve in the paradise, right? So the spirits tell us that no, the man known as Adam, was neither the first, not only nor the only one to populate Earth. So they are being very clear that Adam is not really the one who originated all the humankind. And we know that because supposedly Adam lived in about 4,000 years before Jesus, right? So 4,000 years before Jesus. And we know from science and from all the research done that Homo sapiens, which is our species, has populated Earth since about 200,000 to 300,000 years. So it is unlikely that Adam was one of the first human beings, right? So we have other, what Allan Kardec suggests at that time, and many people today follow the same concept, is that some regard Adam as a myth or allegory personifying one of the world's earliest ages. So the story about Adam, Eve, and the paradise is just a representation about how human beings developed, right? At the early stages, how they were at the early stages. And going further, Emmanuel tells us in On the Way to the Light as well that at Adam and Eve are remembrance of spirits exiled on the dark landscape of Earth. Because during when human life starts on Earth, not only those prototypes of life came to turn to become human beings, but also spirits from other planets came to populate Earth. So there is this migration of spirits from one world to another in order to help with development of the planet and species. So they come perhaps from a more developed world, and they come with knowledge that help Earth to progress. So what this says here, these spirits, they come in exile to the dark landscape of Earth, because they sometimes come from a more evolved planet to the Earth, which is just starting its early stages, right? So it is a kind of exile. Also, Spirit Miramis, he tells that Adam as a primitive, he explains that Adam can be seen as a primitive germ lying in the first trials of the globe. So again, the first human beings on the globe, right? And Eve, it suggests also that Eve as the element that arrived after Earth already cooled down at the point of fertilization. So he makes mention that Adam might be a representation of those prototypes that were left on Earth by the pure spirits, and then Eve is the representation of the moment where human beings were able to multiply in themselves. Okay, and another piece of information: the emergence of humankind on the planet occurred in a collective way in various parts of Earth. So that's also another reason why we can't be coming from one single man, right? Rafael, can you tell me what time I have to stop? Or somebody else? What time? Ten, 12 minutes? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. Okay, so as we touch about a little bit about the Genesis and the story of Adam and Eve, let's Allan Kardec also made a session in this chapter talking about biblical considerations and concerning creation, right? How we should understand what's written in the Bible. And I think that's very interesting, and that was very unique, right? It was a novel idea at the time that Allan Kardec lived. Today, it's probably not so much, right? But it's still, many people might have different perspectives. So he acknowledges that cultures, different cultures, have widely differing ideas and theories about creation. So if we go to different groups of people and communities, they have different ideas about creation. But in all cultures, they have an idea, they have a notion of creation, and they create their own stories about how to explain creation. And science and reason have recognized that the improbability of some of these theories, right? So science has shows that some of the theories are unlikely. So we have examples here, examples about Adam being existed in 4,000 years ago, but then human beings existed before that, right? So things like that the earth was created in 6 days. So these are some examples of things that science has shown that is unlikely to happen. But Allan Kardec, very smartly, he said the contradiction between science and sacred texts, it's more apparent than real. So this contradiction for Allan Kardec doesn't really exist, and very similar to Anna's idea, Anna's conception, right, about this whole science and religion. So Kardec says that the interpretation of the allegorical meanings is the problem. So he said the contradiction is not because of the text in the Bible or what the science says, but the way how we make interpretations of the meanings of the text, right? And then he asks, should we thus conclude that Bible is in error? And he states, no, rather, people err in the way they interpret it. So the way how we read the text, right? Because that is a story, a metaphor, right? An allegory about how things happen. Because at that time, people could not grasp the idea of creation. Think about at the time of Moses, if we were going to talk about atoms and cells even, right? There was no knowledge about that. And even today, as science progress, it's still hard to people make their minds, right? When a new knowledge comes. So it takes some time, even with evidence. So we should not think that Bible is in error. We should maybe reflect and try to grasp the meaning of what is in the Bible, right? Instead of taking things literally. So moving forward, this chapter also talk about the diversity of human races. So Kardec asks the spirits, why are we human beings are so different? We have different races. And the explanation is that because our physical and moral differences even, they come from differences in climate, lifestyle, and customs. And it gives an example of two children coming from the same mother, but they are separated and they are raised by two different families, and they are going to be totally different individuals, right? So he gives this example. And humankind also appeared at various points on the globe and at different periods of time. So this also contributed to the differences we see today. And humankind is spread throughout the different climate zones, and new types arose in the course of interbreeding between different races. So not only different races emerged, but there was also this mixture of races that created a different human beings with different characteristics, right? So the question is, does this different races imply distinct species, right? Are we different species because we have different races? And the Spirit said, and we already know that, right? Certainly not. All are of the same family, right? So think about the time when Allan Kardec was living, right? We still have slavery, right? People consider like Africans, right? Black people, an inferior race, right? They didn't even consider as the same race as them. So these show the spirits at that time were very clear, saying, no, we are all the same family. So what do they mean by family? Right? Oh, of course, somebody's going to say, it's not a family. I'm not your family. We don't have any blood ties. We are talking here, the spirits are talking about the universal family, right? The spirit family, which are our ties as spirits, as inhabitants of the same planet. So we are all brothers and sisters in God, independently of race, place of birth, and other things. And we are brothers and sisters because we are all animated by the same spirit. So we are all spirits. So taking our physical body apart, we cannot differentiate. Even taking our skin apart, the color of our skin, if we remove our skin from inside, we are all very similar, right? So because we are the same in spirit and we strive towards the same goal, right? So all human beings of all races, we go towards the same goal, and the goal of finding perfection, right? We are all created simple and ignorant, and we grow as successive lives comes, as we incarnated many times. We acquire this knowledge of intellectual knowledge and moral knowledge in order to become perfect in the future. So, and the spirits even tell us, right? You always want to take words literally. So when we talk about family, that's our spiritual family. That's what the spirits are telling us, right? So think it more carefully when you talk uh, about the meaning of the words. And continuing here, Emmanuel adds up saying that Earth is a sublime university for 2 million students incarnated in different races and nations. So this was in 1952, right? So there were 2 billion people on earth incarnated. Today, we are in a number over 7.7 billion people incarnated, spirits incarnated. Added to that, at that time, right, in 52, there were more than 22 billion of conscious discarnated souls. So in the spiritual realm, there were also other 22 billion that were in spirit. They did not have a physical body, right? But these are all our brothers and sisters because we are the same family living on earth in spirit, right? So each nation has a specific task in the improvement of the world under supervision of divine intelligences. So that group of pure spirits that govern the world, they oversee all our progress as one single planet, but each nation has its role in this development, in this growth. So the next question is about almost close to the end here. It's about the other worlds, right? So are all the globes spinning through space inhabited? So are there human beings in other planets? And the spirits are very clear, yes. And they also say, contrary to what human beings think, we human beings are far from being the first in intelligence, goodness, or perfection. So this means that in other countries, in other planets, in other worlds, we will find people that are way more intelligent, way more good, way more perfect than we are, right? So, and the reason for having other inhabited worlds comes from the wisdom of God, right? Everything has a purpose. So God must, this is Allan Kardec, right? Reasoning the reason for that. So God in God's perfection, everything has a reason, has an intention. So God would not create all those stars, planets in the universe simply to have life in our planet. And you will not be creating that just to entertain our eyes when we look up the sky. God has populated all worlds with living beings, all working towards the final objective of providence, which is progression, right? It's becoming perfect, perfect words and perfect spirits. So when then the question, another question is, when we'll be able to connect with peoples from other worlds? And then we have here some, this is something that human beings are always seeking about, right? Try to find life in other planets. And the Spirit Miramis tell us about you can exchange experience with brothers and sisters from other worlds because this is the law. So there is a law that apparently we can allow us to have this connection with beings in other planets. But there is a but here. What should we make? He asked a question, right? What should we make of the exchange experiences with brothers and sisters from higher homelands? Because we know we will find higher spirits, more developed, more evolved planets, right? So what we're made up of that? So will that be the connection just for curiosity, for colonization, right? For exploration? So what's the point of that, right? And he advises that we must be prepared to carry the message of fraternity along the lines of love. This is the cooperation of one to another in the service of immortal good. So it looks like, from the words of Miramis, that when we are at a stage on earth where we can have share our message of fraternity and cooperation, there will be a time when we will be able to experience this contact, right? So it is something for us to think if we are at this stage right now, right? Where sometimes fraternity doesn't even exist within our planet, okay? So he says preparation is necessary. And the key for that is the gospel of Jesus as a primer for that. So to finish up, so what is my role? What's our role on the creation, right? Because we are talking about good spirits, pure spirits, and God's will in the creation. So do we have as imperfect, is still very childish, right? In terms of still crawling in our evolution. What is our role in the creation? Right? So Miramis advises to not worry so much and try to find the ages of the worlds, while we still have to discover the age of hatred generated in the hearts of the ignorant, right? So we are still carrying too many negative feelings that we should be focusing on now. So why we should care about how much time has passed to form Earth itself if we still do not understand jealousy, selfishness, and vanity that born in our own ways. So he invite us to first fight against these distortions of personality, spend as much time as necessary disintegrating these inconveniences, so the bad, our vicissitudes, right? And begin to form the worlds of good in our hearts. So we work the creation inside of us, creating a better self. And count the time when humankind will understand the age of love, awakening, and souls. So the gospel is the key that we need to get through this. And to finish up, right? So Emmanuel invite us to work in the great hive of evolution with no other concern than being good servants of him, who on high knows about all our struggles and tears, right? So God knows our struggles. Jesus also knows our struggles. So let's work on that. And let us trust in him. Let us trust in God, because the whole story of creation shows us that we are not alone. We have been taken care of since before we existed. And that's the key lesson of creation, right? Everything has its place and time, but we have to trust. And from his majestic and merciful heart flows the spring of light in life, harmony and peace to all hearts. And may he bless you. Right? So that's the message of Emmanuel, and that's what Spiritism invites us today, to think about us as part of creation, as a creature of God that's loved in all the moment, all the moment, all the time. And let's trust him that we are being taken care of, and we can do our part as well, starting from inside of us. So I think I ended my, and I think I passed a little bit of the time. I'm sorry.
Great. It was great.
Mirames, Mirames, yeah. So his spirit is the medium is João Nunes Maia. He has many works that he received messages from Mirames. So Mirames, they have a collection that is called the Spiritist book commentaries. So it's a work with like 20, I think they have 20 volumes for each question of the Spiritist book. There's a commentary by the Spirit Miramis. So from what I read from his biography, he was a Spanish, a young Spanish man. He came to Brazil, and he just got in love with the indigenous Brazilian indigenous peoples, and he when he arrived in Brazil, he learned to speak the dialects right away, and he just fell in love, and he never returned to his family, to his country. He was asked to sell all his belongings in Spain. He just live in Brazil for the rest of his life, right? And that's what I know from his story. I should know more, but yeah. So he wrote also other very interesting books, right? So one book about Mary, another book about Saint Francis of Assisi. As I don't know if that's the way how I say just to pronounce AC. Yeah, and yeah. So they have these commentaries. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. It was a great study, and all these reminders of how wonderful we are, right? And that we are all connected.
And we are.
Right? That we are all
Yes.
connected, and that the whole creation is connected. So we are also connected with the other beings, with nature and things like that. But at the end, that we are just one spiritual family, like you explained to us. And, I love also the way you finished saying that, it's not that we are all connected, but everything works in cooperation, right? So that is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the intent, the vision, right? So all in creation is connected, and also it works in cooperation. So we should always remember charity and fraternity. So it was a great study. Sometimes it's hard to study the spirit's book, and I know that there's a lot of questions for you, but I think you did wonderfully in trying to bring it all together, and also in reaching with other very relevant spirits literatures. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being so nice with me. It is a very complex topic, right? Because we can deviate towards science and stay very grounded, while I think the invitation from the Spiritist book and the Spiritism is for us to look beyond that, right? And how we think about our spirit as us as spirits incarnated, right, in life, and how we can help with the creation and how we see creation, right, as one point in time. Yeah, I learned a lot as well. I thank you, all of you, because I was the one who learned most. Mm-hmm. No, it's in Portuguese. It's in Portuguese. I translated most of things from in GPL, so you worked okay. So perhaps, yeah, 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 heart. Yes, is the land of the gospel.
Of the gospel.
Brasil coração da. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, it's fertile soil, right? When you are able to express, right, your faith without being persecuted. I think in terms that in the welcome that that came, even though, right, in the way how we have, yeah, and the spirits help for that environment too, right? We have to recognize that in the preparation, dissemination of spiritist knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So are we ready for our virtual passes? So if you guys have your water, just grab your water, and we will start our virtual passes, and we'll do our final prayer before we say good night tonight. Okay? Let me just make sure that I.
Let's now take a moment for meditation, to calm down and go inside ourselves. Before we start, make sure you have a bottle or a jar of water close to you, for you and your family. This water will be magnetized and blessed during the passes. Let's now silence our thoughts, preparing to receive the blessings of the passes. We begin the passes by breathing slowly and deeply, relaxing our body and our minds. Letting go of any worries, any thoughts, just for this moment. We raise our thoughts to Jesus by tuning in with the good spiritual friends, and we put ourselves in prayer. We ask God our Father for the presence of our guardian angels and all the friendly spirits by our side in this moment, asking them to assist all the homes that are being represented here. We ask God to allow us to receive His healing light, curing all physical ailments, stopping any action of infirmities through the vibrations of these beautiful golden rays of light throughout our being. We now proceed to the dispersion pass. Let's imagine a beautiful waterfall of crystal clear waters falling over us, full of blessings, involving our whole body, removing all negative energy, thoughts, and feelings, penetrating and involving our entire body, organs, cells, and our centers of force, restoring our energies, detaching ourselves from all hurt, all anger, any nervous tensions, any guilt, sadness, and frustration, afflictions, and anxieties. We allow the action of this cleansing by putting all of our difficulties and sensations in the hands of the emissaries of Christ. We feel ourselves spiritually clean. We feel these waters involving, in this moment, the entire environment of our home, opening the doors to cleanliness and releasing all feelings of selfishness and possession. May this water clean the spiritual environment of our home from all forms of ill thoughts and feelings that may bring disharmony to ourselves and our family members. Dear God, embrace our hearts, giving everyone good intuitions and freeing us all from evil. Thank you, dear God. We now proceed to the replenishing passes. Now, after cleaning, after feeling light and happy to be free, we start the strengthening phase, restoring all of our energies. We let the light of love fall upon us by rays of restoration of our whole entire being, helping us re-energize both morally and spiritually. We visualize the team of spiritual doctors around our physical and spiritual body in this moment. We now receive this beautiful light that provide beneficial and strengthening energies. You are receiving these energies through your breath, through the pores of your body, and through your mental thoughts. These energies are strengthening your immune system, restoring to balance all of your organic activities, bringing encouragement and well-being to your entire being. We now thank Jesus and the whole team of good spirits and ask them for this light of healing and blessings to be sent to all humanity, involving all the sick and distressed due to the trials of earth at this time. Let us unite our thoughts of love to be an instrument of support so that the good spirits can act on everyone who needs it at this moment. Passes in the name of Jesus. At this moment, we imagine the hospitals and everyone there receiving this healing support, the homes of the sick and those who remain silent, still feeding the actions of this disease. We know that God acts in all of us. May His will be done. You may now serve this water for you and your family, today and during this week, keeping these rays of vibrations of light and love to continue to act on your mental and physical body.
All right, so let's finish with our...
The one thing I'm telling other managers right now is to try Monday.com. Monday.com is a platform to run everything your company does. I can see the whole quarter laid out in front of me. And then
Goodness. I am really sorry about that, guys. So now let's take a deep breath and thank God for this moment together, for this opportunity to feel and to hear about how wonderful each and every one of us is. To be reminded that we are not alone, that we are all connected, and that we were created by love, for love, and with love. So that is our destiny. That is what is expected of us. That's our destiny. So knowing how wonderful we are or being reminded of that, let us also not forget that there's nothing we can do that can keep us away from this wonderful love of our Creator for each and every one of us. It doesn't matter how we feel at the moment. It doesn't matter which choices we have made before. The only thing that matters is that we are sons and daughters of God, a very merciful, loving Father who sees us for our potential, like that little seed that sometimes no one gives any credit, but is capable of flourishing in a big, beautiful tree. Jesus, stay with us as we continue our week, protect our families, and may we be together, Jesus, in your name, many more times. Glory be to God, and so be it.